Action. We got Dan in the house.
We're in the house.
Dan, the hype man.
Hype and Dan.
Hype man, Dan.
Talking short-term rentals.
All the way from Colorado, now in Chicago.
Via Colorado, via Massachusetts, via lots of places. But here in the Windy City right now. Yeah, I love this vacuum machine. It's made me a lot of money. So let's.
Oh, yeah.
It's perfect. You guys found the perfect device. I list the house for $50 more than it would be without the Pac-Man. First, you just look around at your competitors and you look at what amenities could you add. And a game room is a pretty low-hanging fruit. Like a lot of people have a basement or extra space. Game rooms are not that hard, but the gold standard of game rooms is pool tables, which are expensive. So arcade cabinets are like, they take up not that much space, and they're really cool. They're novelties. Like arcade bars are getting really popular right now. So you might as well give people the arcade bar in the Airbnb. Like they don't have to leave, and it's free. Play as much as you want. Colorado's got big cities too. What drew me out to Colorado, and I grew up in Massachusetts. It's a pretty homogenous culture, and went to school out there near Boston, and just got bored. A lot of my friends started moving to San Francisco, working for tech companies, and I just wanted to get out of Massachusetts. Like most people, I think 90% of people or something live within 7 miles of where they were born, and like never leave that bubble. And like, I wanted to leave that bubble. I think like you could get further in life and have better perspectives if you leave the bubble that you grew up in. So I just started applying out to all the Western big cities, Seattle, San Francisco, Denver, wherever I could find cool big tech jobs. And I got a job at a Fortune 500 telecom company, Dish Network, which is a very like 1980s backwards corporate world where your slacks, clock in, clock out. It was a good opportunity for me. So I moved out to Denver. Moved downtown, got a cool apartment, and went out Airbnb it when I went out of town. And that was my first introduction to Airbnb. It was like, I got a business trip, I got to be in Mexico to go to a factory to analyze it. Why not I just let somebody in my Airbnb or in my apartment to rent it out while I'm gone?
So your first Airbnb was an apartment you were renting?
Yeah, and it was, you could call it an arbitrage, right? Because I was renting it and then I would put it up. I didn't have a lease that said I could sublet it. I didn't care. This was like the Wild West of Airbnb. I just put it up, and I had no way to let them in the building either. Because there was like a fob system. I didn't think about the lockbox or whatever, so I was like, all right, this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna come up to the building, inconspicuously wait around, wait for somebody to come in, and just tail them in there. And that's how I made people enter my Airbnb. And then I left the key under the mat in front of the door. And I got one questionable review, and the 4 people seemed like it was great. It was fine. This was like 2014. The Airbnb was young, but people would come for conferences and wanted to find cheap places. So I made like $100, $200 per night, would leave 5, 6 nights, make 500 or $1,000 every now and then. But I didn't have the money to start an Airbnb, although I wanted to buy real estate in Colorado, and I should have back in 2014, because I was on this wave of a huge amount of tech workers moving to Colorado, in Denver particularly. Like tons and tons of educated, mostly male tech workers flooded Colorado and made it all really expensive. Like the average house in Denver was probably closer to Chicago back then, and it's since exploded from $400,000 to $700,000, where Chicago has gone up by far less. So I've seen this huge explosion in Colorado of like people moving there, people clogging up the highways, buying the houses, and companies like Google, which I eventually got hired for in Colorado after I got my master's degree, expanding their campuses and being the #1 campus that people want to move to from San Francisco. It's like the hardest part of Airbnb mostly is getting it started. It's all kind of upfront work, and if you can automate it really well, then you can kind of cruise. But like emergencies are always going to pop up. My pipes froze in the middle of the winter in my cabin. You know, if we didn't get them unfroze in a couple hours, like it was going to burst. So let's call people, let's find somebody, let's get this fixed. So like you just have to be ready to like deal with an emergency and put out a fire at any moment. Like the cheapest way to get labor is to go straight to the subcontractors. So my wife, who speaks fluent Spanish, likes to go salsa dancing, and end up meeting a lot of the subcontractors in Denver. And we hired the subs that the contracting companies you want to do flooring end up using. You pay them more and you pay less overall. And maybe you lose a little bit of insurance along the way and coverage. But so I find the best way is to go straight to people like that. So I had a crew in Denver that did all my floors. They poured concrete, they built parking, they cut down 30 trees outside. And when my pipes froze, I called them and I was like, can you like go to Home Depot, pick up this order of heat tape with this extension cord, go to this crawl space, that looks like this, unscrew it, go in there, wrap the pipes with the heat tape, and put the new insulation on it. I gave him that to-do list. I ordered it to Home Depot. He went to go pick it up, and then I paid him hourly. I think all in it probably cost me $500 or $600 between maybe $400 or $500 between the labor, like maybe 150, 200 in materials, and then 200 in his time across 2 days. But like he showed up last minute at night, you know, when my house would have caused like tens of thousands of damages potentially if it actually burst the water. If you're just like asleep at the wheel, like it can go badly. And you have to be willing to like multitask, and juggle many opportunities at once. There's just too many things you have to juggle at Airbnb if you're not like a multitasker.
You have to give them instructions, right?
Yeah.
And that was very helpful to like actually making the situation like work out. Because if you hire like a contractor or somebody that's never been in the house, it's like first they got to go investigate, see what's there, what's the problem, learn new things, and then quote you. And then on top of that, they like find someone else to go do it. So then it just might end up costing you more if you're not really aware of the solution at first. Was what it seems like. For a new host, that might be like a barrier, just like they've never experienced even managing a house before.
I think the biggest barrier is managing people. And you become, like most of us don't manage people, like I did for a few years and before I joined Google, like a team. But most people have not managed people before, especially like contractors. They don't know how to set clear expectations, clear pricing. And that's a hard part. Like for some of my students, like they needed help in coaching, like interviewing cleaners and repair people. Be like, okay, let's identify them, let's call them, here's the script for the interview, tell me about your previous clients, like here's the questions to ask them. You tell them what the pay is, you don't ask them, and then it's a negotiation as well. But like giving people, empowering them to do this negotiation, because a new host can pay more than they need to if they're only calling the professional plumbers and electricians and handy guys off of Thumbtack and different websites like that. You have to have the crew, you have to meet them, you have to validate them. That's part of like setting up a house, is meet the local team, validate them, get recommendations from other hosts, and make sure that when you're not there, you have someone you can trust that can just show up, you know how much you're gonna pay them for the first hour, and you know what the hourly rate from there on is. It's not gonna be this like last minute electrician company, like whatever handy guy that charges you $300 to come out and then start billing you. The professional companies just bill out so much. You have to have people on staff, like on contract, on 1099, that like you call them when stuff goes wrong, random stuff.
So it seems like the key to holding this together is trust, like building a trust relationship system between multiple different people.
And that's harder for different hosts. Like we've met some hosts through the Windy City short-term rental club that I run in Chicago that like have little trust, and he can't like delegate fully because he's having trouble trusting his contractors. And especially once you get to multi-units, like you have to have a team, you have to have a primary and a couple backups for a cleaner and a repair guy across multiple properties. Like it's a lot of trust you have to build with these people, and like you have to be willing to like trust but verify with things like smart locks. When did they check in, check out? Is that what they billed me for? And get to know these people and have them be recommended by trusted sources as well.